I just sent you a marker.
Leave room on thread. Yeah.
Where's he going?
No idea.
PSG.
Maybe. All I know is I don't want Arsenal.
No, I know. I was going to be interested back in between other
To be with Arsenal or for like
Yeah,
20 years.
that's gotta be his.
No, but
He's gotta be done.
I would hope he is. Something like that.
Well, it's 7:01 p.m. We have a quorum. I've not heard anything from Mr. Baldwin yet.
They may be having a baby.
Oh, they're having a baby?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, he already had.
Oh, he had.
Everybody's doing well.
Oh, my goodness. So one of our council members, Mark Baldwin, just became a daddy again. That's the third, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other two are
And the other two are Hellions.
heathens.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Well, anyway, congratulations to Mark Baldwin, who's I'm sure watching on YouTube. Probably not. But with that happy news, I will bring the regular council meeting of the City of Gardner, Kansas, to order. Will you please stand and recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, that was a happy bit of news. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that with us. Well, we don't have any presentations this evening, so we will go straight to public comments. As a reminder, members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. Now, anybody can come forward who's a member of the public. You don't have to be a citizen of Gardner. You can state your name and address for the record, but please be aware of personal attacks or profanities. I'd have to gavel you down. So with that, I will let the podium be open. With no one coming forward, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Melton, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda passes. There are no committee recommendations this evening. It's going to be a short meeting. There's no old business. I know. There's no old business. We will move straight on to the new business items. And the new business item number 1 is consider adopting an ordinance. This is where we spend the money for the Justice Center, isn't it?
It is.
Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of $15,850,000, and I have a feeling that it's going to be lower than that. Yes?
Okay, so in front of you, you have a new ordinance and a new resolution.
Yes.
As you said, we sold bonds today, and the amount is decreased, and I will stop talking because I don't want to steal Bruce's thunder. So Municipal Advisor Kimmel and Bond Counsel Ellsworth are here, and I'll let them talk.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor and Council. Bruce Kimmel with Ellers, and we have really fantastic news to share with you tonight. Just to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, the bond amount, as you can see, is $14,985,000. It's like the Price is Right. We're right under $15 million, but that is a reduction of $865,000 from the offering amount, and that was due to the very large premium that the winning bidder, Baird, put on their proposal. And so we were able to basically just slice that much off of the bond amount and come out with very, very good results in interest costs going forward, which I'll discuss in more detail. I believe you all have the sale day report in front of you. And as you recall, there were 3 purposes in this bond issue. One was to fund the Justice Center with funding of about $13.5 million. We had just under $200,000 of funding for a pool filter system replacement for the Aquatic Center and $1.9 million of funding for street improvements this year. And so all of those were fully funded through this bond issue and also with the principal reduction that I just mentioned. the results were really fantastic and better than projected. We received 6 bids on the city's behalf at 11 this morning. The winning bid came from Baird & Company out of Milwaukee, and they were joined by 35 other underwriting firms as part of their syndicate. Usually Baird has 20-some. I don't know what's going on, that they now have increased the size of their posse to 35 other firms, but they have, and you can see that on the next page of the bid. And a number of these banks and underwriting firms are Kansas City firms, Country Club, Commerce, et cetera. So I'm guessing due to the large size of the bond issue and the fact that it was non-bank qualified, they decided to join forces with Baird, but were able to tell Baird, hey, we've got investors that are very interested in these bonds, and that's why Baird ended up in the top position. But if you just take a quick peek at the other bids, which are on the same bid tabulation, you'll notice that numbers 2 through 6 are clumped together in a very tight pattern. So Baird was out in front by about 7 basis points, 7 or 8. But then the other 5 bids were all within 10 basis points of each other. So even the last place bid would have been about 25 basis points better than our projection. And the Baird bid was about 40 basis points better. So a great result, especially when you're talking about $15 million of financing over a 20-year period, at least for a portion of it. I won't go into too much detail on the restructuring, but I would just call your attention again to that first page of the bid tabulation. And we included the coupons that you'll be paying on the bonds that were bought by Baird, but then the yields as well. And this is really where that premium comes into play. So you can see your true interest rates, if you will, the yields on each of these maturities range from 1.65% up to 3.4%. But you can see the coupons are jumping all over the place, and that's because these underwriters know exactly who they're going to sell these bonds to, right? They know that some investors want those 5% coupons, even though they're only earning 2% on it. Others, after the call date in 2027, are much more comfortable having bonds at or close to the yield amount. So it's one of the great things about the competitive bid system is that we set the parameters that they have to play by, but then each firm gets to decide based on their customer base exactly how they want to structure their bid, and the best result ends up accruing to the city. And then, Mr. Mayor, the only other thing I would just mention, if you flip forward a few pages to the bond schedules, we won't go through these in detail, but I would remind you that you'll be paying for the Justice Center over 20 years, or actually just a little bit more than 19 years. And then the pool improvements and the street improvements will be paid back over a little more than 9 years, so 19 years and then 9 years. And when you look at all of the debt service altogether, you can see that total principal and interest, if you let this go the entire 20-year term, would be about $20.7 million. So you're paying about $5 million of interest, but that's $700,000 less than what we had projected. So that's the net impact, is $700,000 of savings, or lower cost really, than what we had estimated and what you had thought was reasonable to go forward with. So that will mean real savings and real benefit on a year-by-year basis. The biggest part of that is the Justice Center, and so if you see the debt schedule that has the title of general purposes for about $13.1 million, that debt service on an annual basis is about $35,000 less than projected over 19 years. So the biggest part of that savings is accruing really to the Justice Center portion of the debt. Before I move on to the credit rating really quickly, are there any questions about the bids or the restructuring or the debt service that the city will be paying?
No, we'll just call you miracle worker from now.
Yeah. One of these days, Mr. Mayor, the luck is going to run out, but until it does, and I would note, you really timed the market well. I mean, of course, you issued bonds when you need the money for the Justice Center, but right now there's even more of a lack of Kansas paper in the market than there usually is. You're always benefited by there being more demand than there is supply. So when you enter the market, people are eager to buy the city's bonds. But that's even more so right now, where there's lots of people with funds they would like to put in Kansas municipal bonds, and there's just not the available supply. So that's to the city's benefit. And then in addition, I think some of the uncertainty about global trade and the EU that has come up again, that kind of instability and uncertainty drives people to the relative safety of muni bonds as well, right?
That's correct, safe haven.
So it was sort of, I think, a double benefit that got you these results today.
Actually,
Okay.
We called up Donald Trump and had him.
That's
start
right,
the
you had
trade
him
war just
shake-
for this purpose. Yeah.
Shake his saber a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, rattle the saber. So then lastly, Mayor and Council, I'd like to just touch really briefly on the credit rating, which we included in your report. It wasn't that long ago since we talked with S&P on the 2017 bonds, and they did decide to affirm the city's rating at a AA- with a stable outlook. Virtually everything came through with really, really strong flying colors. And I would just note on the first page, there's a synopsis. You'll recall that S&P is required to use certain adjectives like adequate, strong, weak. And so you have to take some of these descriptors with a grain of salt because they only have 5 or 6 words to choose from. But I would point out in particular that they say that the city had weak budgetary performance. All that means is anytime there's a deficit, even if it was a planned deficit, which you plan to use some of your fund balance to get to a target range, they're going to ding you on that. So it doesn't matter how well thought out, how intentional it was. If you spend more than you take in, they're going to say it's weak.
Sure.
But you'll notice that you have very strong budgetary flexibility and very strong liquidity, and that matters much more than anything else because that's about your cash and your ability to access cash if needed for a rainy day. And in addition, strong management is a definite feather in the city's cap. So those 3 things, I would say, are the biggest components and the things that are within your control. And I would pay much more attention to that than supposedly weak budgetary performance. Also, debt, they have these very strict guidelines for categorizing your debt burden. And so by their metrics, you'll see it's called very weak, but they recognize that as a growing city entering the next phase of development and growth, that this is a very common profile to have. And you'll note that they give you credit for rapid amortization. In other words, you're not selling bonds and paying them off over 30 years. Whenever possible, you're paying them off quickly, which is to your benefit and your credit as well. So I would welcome any questions here, but it was a very positive discussion. Finance Director Gorley and Assistant Tornaden do a great job of putting together all the information. And I think the call was all of what?
12 minutes.
12 minutes this year?
12 minutes.
The
I like
analyst
that.
down in Dallas said, I don't know what we have to talk about because it's all right in front of me. And that's thanks to Laura and Nancy. So
Sure.
it makes their job easy, it makes my job easy, and it went very smoothly. So with that, I'll turn it back over. I'll turn it back over to Laura. You have an ordinance and a resolution in front of you.
Yes, sir.
And as she mentioned, bond counsel from QTAC Rock is here as well. So thank you very much.
Great. Yeah, I see Travis over there.
Laura, before you start, I just wanted to point out again
Randy,
that,
I have to open up the floor to public comment. I'm sorry.
well, he asked for questions, I was
I
waiting for.
understand that, but we have to open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward on new business item number 1? With no one coming forward, I will cede the floor to you, Mr. Grabarczyk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to point out that I think it's really impressive to see in writing that 75.8% of debt scheduled to be retired in 10 years. I mean, that's amazing to me.
And it's unusual.
Yeah,
Most clients that have rapid amortization might have 60, maybe
Okay.
65%, but
in the
even
same
that's-
span of time, or?
Or over a 10-year period,
Okay.
and that's considered rapid for most entities. So to be north of 70% is really a strong sign of your strong management that you've done the planning to be able to pay it off that quickly.
Yeah, that's a real long haul lead up, if you will, because I think Laura's been doing that for
It's everybody.
absolutely,
Right.
but years and years back to the leadership portion of that, and that's an amazing number. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's all right. Anyone else wish to comment or questions or anything on this? Yeah, I heard I heard that 2 of the 12 minutes was spent trying to convince S&P to increase the bond rating to
Yeah, a
Yes.
little bit. I might.
AA.
Yeah. And Mayor, I should note that we telegraphed very clearly the other debt that the city might be having over the next couple of years for a variety of reasons,
Sure.
development related and otherwise, and they didn't blink an eye at that. So what's nice is we don't have to have any shyness or thoughts of how they're going to react because they know everything that's on your potential path forward.
Good. Well,
Yep.
thank you, Bruce, for giving them that heads up. Thanks again. Good work. And if there's no other questions, I will entertain a motion on new business item number 1.
So moved. Second.
Motion Melton, second Moore, that we adopt ordinance number 2580, correct? Authorizing the issuance and delivery of $14,985,000 in principal amount of general obligation bonds series 2018A of the city of Gardner, Kansas, and providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on the bonds as they become due. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Winters,
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk,
Yes?
Councilman Melton,
Yes.
Councilman Moore,
Yes.
Ordinance number 2580 passes. New business item number 2, consider adopting a resolution prescribing the form and details of and authorizing the delivery of $14,985,000 in principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2018A of the city of Gardner, Kansas, previously authorized by an ordinance of the city. Hello, Laura.
Well, there's nothing to say. You read exactly what it is. It's the resolution prescribing the form of details, and you need to pass it too.
Excellent. Any public comments on new business item number 2? No one coming forward. Any questions, further clarifications, anything? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, with that being said, I will entertain a motion on the resolution 1989.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Moore, that we adopt resolution number 1989 prescribing the form and details of and authorizing the delivery of $14,985,000 in principal amount of general obligation bond series 2018A of the city of Gardner, Kansas, previously authorized by an ordinance of the city. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Gregorczyk,
Yes?
Councilman Melton,
Yes.
Councilman Moore,
Yes.
Councilman Winters,
Yes. Resolution 1989 passes. Thank you again, Bruce.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor and Council. I just wanted to say one last thing. You'll recall that a month ago you adopted a resolution or an ordinance for the golf course financing. Yes. And that financing closed officially last Friday,
Great.
and which is great. And I just wanted to give a shout out, if you will, to your bond attorneys at QTech. Those kind of deals are never as straightforward as these GO deals, and they did fantastic work in just getting us to the finish line on that golf course financing. So these guys are, sometimes behind the scenes, but you've got a really great team. So just wanted to let you know you've got the golf course funding.
Absolutely. That sounds
So-
great. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Bruce.
Thank you.
For everything.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
All right, new business item number 3, consider the appointment of Dave Hayden to the Airport Advisory Board. This is my item. The interview team met about a week ago, and we considered 2 candidates. Dave Hayden is being tapped to take the position on the board. Let's go here, my new business item number 3 here. There we go. And this is going to be for the term expiring February 28th of 2019. And obviously we have members of the interview team on the dais here. I think the only one that's missing here is Mark Baldwin for obvious reasons. But I don't think we have anybody for public comment on new business item number 3, but I'll open that up for the gallery. No one coming forward. Any further questions?
I'm really excited to have Mr. Hayden back on the Airport Advisory Board. He's got a long tenure of serving in this capacity, and he's done tremendous things for the airport over his service. So we're looking forward to seeing what else he can do for us.
I would be in agreement. With that being said, are there any other questions? Or can we move on to a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Moore, that we appoint Dave Hayden to the Airport Advisory Board to fill a vacancy with a term expiring February 28th of 2019. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 3 passes. New business item number 4, consider the appointment of David Glider to the Airport Advisory Board. David's a new member of the Airport Advisory Board. Was very impressive with his interview. I will cede it to Mr. Moore to see if he has anything else to say about Dave.
Yeah, I'm also excited to see Mr. Gleitner on board as well. He has a 40-plus year history with the airport as a tenant, So he's been renting a hangar out there and flying and operating out of there for a very, very long time. Has very unique insight and should be able to help us move things forward in a very positive way for the airport.
Great. Any public comment on new business item number 4? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. That being said, any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Just for the record, when is the next airport board meeting scheduled? Now that you've got
That would be a question for Michael.
next airport board? Monday of
This
next
coming
week.
Monday?
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. I will entertain a motion then on new business item number 4.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Winters, that we authorize me to appoint David Glider to fill a vacancy on the Airport Advisory Board with a term expiring January 31st of 2021. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 4 passes. New business item number 5, consider the appointment of Stephen McNear to the Planning Commission. This is the ending of a laborious process. We've had some stops and starts and a couple of deadlocks, but I think we did come to a consensus to appoint Mr. McNear to the Planning Commission, and that term would be expiring May 18th of 2021. And open the floor for public comments. If there's anyone wishing to comment on new business item number 5, please come forward. All right, with no one coming forward, any questions, thoughts?
No.
Okay. With that being said, I will entertain a motion on new business item number 5.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Moore, that we authorize the mayor to appoint Stephen McNear to the Planning Commission to fill a vacancy with a term expiring May 18th of 2021. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 5 passes. Time for council updates, and it's only 7:20 in the evening. Might be a land speed
Don't
record for this
even
council.
say it.
All right. Okay, staff, I'm going to start with Gons. Do you have anything for council?
On Sunday, we had a power outage that affected the Price Chopper and the adjacent businesses. The call was received about 4:13. The power was restored at 5:23. The reason for the outage, there's a feeder circuit 34 open due to overcurrent. Usually that's an indication of lightning hitting the line. We're still reviewing the event recorders to come up with the root cause of the problem.
Great. Just a curious question, Gons. We had a big windstorm come through. There was significant amounts of damage throughout the metro area, about 40,000 or 80,000, I'd say. 80,000. The KCP&L had said we were out of power for a significant amount of time. How long was our total outage? An hour?
That was on Sunday. On Saturday, the wind-related, we only had a street light that was knocked down by the overpass. That was the only one reported.
But no power outages
No
to any of our
power
customers.
outage, no, sir.
Well, there you go. That just, again, illustrates to me why it's so much of a benefit to have our own utilities and excellent management of them. So thank you very much, Gons, for that. Jason Bruce, anything from Parks and Rec?
No, sir, not tonight.
Great. Larry Powell.
Couple of items to bring back to you just for clarification. When we made the motion last meeting concerning the streets and driveways item, there was an original conversation about taking it just to staff and then have a work study session to review that. And then we wound up taking action to actually, it appears to initiate planning commission activity. And so planning staff and I have questions as to which way you would prefer to go. Do you want planning staff to bring back solutions to you first and have a study session, or do you want us to go ahead and work something out with planning commission and get a recommendation? Which is the preferred method for this particular category?
Personally, I think that if we can use the established procedures in place already, it would make sense. So have it go through the planning commission and then have them bring a recommendation to us.
And that's fine. We just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify.
Is that fair?
That's, I mean, that's why we have a process.
Okay, all right.
And that's great. We just wanted to clarify that that was the action that you were attempting to get through, and we just wanted to make sure we knew that. Along with that, I would just say to you that we have met with Mr. Mabe a couple of times. We've met with him on site. We've discussed the issues. He's given us his reasons for the things that he would like to see made different or changed or improved, and we've done some additional study already with some of the cities along with that. And we had a similar conversation with him at the same time concerning the street trees for his particular project. His is one of the first projects that's actually fully going through the new land development code process, and so he's been kind of an implementer of different activities and review processes that we've had in this procedure so far. We've even continued that conversation even up to 5 o'clock this evening, where we're talking about different types of trees and different locations. So I think we pretty have the trees under control at this point in time. It's the driveway issues for twin homes that we'll be working on and we'll be bringing back to you. There may be other concerns that he has as we go through that, but like I said, we've met with him personally on site, and we'll continue to do that as we go through this process of review. So we have that.
Okay.
One other item that has been basically taken care of by staff so far, but you need to be aware of, and that is the hotel project. We had to have a short-term stop work order last Friday issued for that. We had a fire department go out and do a review. They had been requested to come out and review some of the fire apparatus, wires, etc. on the building, which is part of the normal inspection process, and it was time for that at this particular category. And when they did so, they found items that they were quite concerned about, that they weren't sure, based on the plans they had available to them on site to review, that some of the activities, fire stop activities, craft paper facing, etc., were being properly followed. And so they came back to us and asked us to issue a stop work order. We concurred and did so. We had an immediate meeting that same day with the contractor, and we had and with the property owners who happened to have been out of the United States at the time, but we called them on the phone and talked to them and initiated a series of steps to overcome that. And then the next day we issued a temporary work order, which allows them to continue work on the 5th floor and on the conference center, and allowing the implementation and installation of all windows. And this is under the purview of a special fire inspector who is hired by the contractor to look at their plans and ascertain what issues, if any, need to be addressed. And so we're moving forward. We've not stopped construction totally on that project, but I knew you'd probably hear, and the public would be hearing about something about this, because we don't issue stop work orders lightly. They're only done in matters of life, health, safety, and only under the purview of a direct, real concern that something is occurring that needs to be addressed immediately. And so that's what occurred. But again, this is now moving forward under a partial work release, and work is continuing on the project. And we don't foresee that this is going to forestall or stop the planned opening and project timeframe to be completed in October, November this year.
Yeah. They were actually ahead of schedule anyway, weren't they, even with the weather?
Had recently got to the point where they were slightly ahead of schedule, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So.
Things like this happen. So let's just make sure it's done right. That's the most important thing for health and safety concerns. So great, thank you. Michael Kramer, Public Works.
Yeah, Sunday morning our airport fuel system at some point stopped working again, and our vendor was able to troubleshoot that remotely and get it back up and running. But it was very similar to the issue we had a few weeks ago, and so I don't know. At this point, we're not sure if it was storm related or phone line related. Previously, we thought it was due to all the, the phone line outages that we had at that time, and so we are working with our vendor to, try and track down exactly what caused it. But it did get up and running pretty quickly after it was noted, so.
Do we have any alarms that let us know when that happens?
No, I mean, because it's just it's the fuel pump and the station, and it's where it reads the credit card, and so you don't know until you try and run a credit card and it doesn't work.
Okay. All right, thanks, Michael. Oh, a question about the bids for the start of work for the pavement management program.
So of course, last council meeting, we approved the concrete, and they've started working. And then today, we did have bid openings on the pavement management for both the asphalt and the chip seal, and they were below our estimate, so that's a good thing, and it will allow us to do some additional work.
Great, thank you. Chief?
I've had a number of inquiries over the last few weeks about pit bulls in the city and the legality of owning them. We do not have a breed-specific ban on pit bulls or any other dog. We've had 2 bite incidents over the last few weeks. The first one, a dog got out of the backyard and killed another dog that was being walked across the street. The owner tried to intervene, was also bit. I made a determination that dog be deemed vicious, and it was removed from the city. The other dog was let loose to run at Westside Park in one of the fenced fields. 2 10-year-olds showed up and got to the fence and the gate before the owner could intervene, and it bit one of the 10-year-olds. Pretty good-sized gash on his arm. We took custody of that dog as well, and it's still being boarded until that case is adjudicated in municipal court. But again, we have no bans on pit bulls or any other breed, so that's the extent of what we're capable of doing at this time.
I think you had mentioned this. You're all right? Okay. All right, well, I'm sure that if there is reason to, we'll possibly take a look at the dog policy, although this is a situation where they just didn't follow the existing ordinances, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really not something that we could have necessarily prevented. Is that correct? I mean,
Chief, the one that got over the yard, was the fence not tall enough to contain the animal?
The gate was left open.
The gate was left open.
Okay. Correct. All right, well, thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. City Clerk, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Okay. I do have something, and the City Clerk hasn't mentioned, but I will mention on her behalf, and that is if you have not made your appointments to the boards and commission or the citizen advisory committees that you are responsible for, please do so. And what we need is not only a name, but we also need to have that paragraph explaining from that individual, explaining why they want to serve on that citizen advisory committee. There have been folks that have given names but have not given the paragraphs. Others have not given names. So we need to get those filled. And this is the gentle reminder to do so on behalf of the city clerk who has to manage those appointments. So I said my piece. Finance Director, yes. Finance Director Gurley. Good work.
Thank you.
As always. City Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Okay. City Administrator.
Yes, just like to remind you that on Tuesday, we will have the joint meeting with the Board of Education and the council starting at 9:30. Prior to that, we'll have the groundbreaking for the Justice Center. I spoke with the superintendent today and invited them to join us over at the groundbreaking, and then we could go over to the retreat at the Airport Commission.
Excellent. Thanks, Cheryl. And welcome back from vacation.
Thank you.
Hope it was restful.
Yes.
Good. All right. Anything from council for staff? I will start with Mr. Winters.
Yeah. Just a reminder, this weekend is the Festival on the Trails. It's June 8th and 9th, Friday and Saturday. Should be a lot of fun. We'll be packing a lot of people, so I invite council to come join me either Friday or Saturday night by the stage there.
And who's playing what night?
Friday night is Pat Travers and Molly Hatchet. And Saturday night will be Ricochet and Restless Heart.
Excellent.
Good adult contemporary country. So we encourage you to come on out. There's events all day on Saturday, and we start off with a 5K color run, and we've got a car show and kids activities, all kinds of fun stuff. So please come
Awesome.
on out.
I think I got a brief stint set up for the funnel cake booth.
Ah.
Yeah.
Are you just eating or?
I wish. I'm gonna be actually working it. I'm selling.
No,
I'm selling funnel cakes.
That doesn't sound as much fun.
It's probably not, but a little part to give back. Anyway, thanks, Todd. Anyone else? I'll start with. I just start with Todd. I'll get you.
I was going to say, you started down to your
Yeah.
stage right.
Well, I'll give the council president the next go then.
All right. I want to start off by congratulating, and of course I wasn't on the selection committee, so I don't know a lot of the background of the candidates that were reviewed. But thank you and congratulations to Mr. McNear for applying and for ultimately winning a seat on the Planning Commission. The only thing I know about Mr. McNear is he's a realtor in town and been around quite a while. So. But thank you, and thank you for stepping up. It's really important, and I guess thank you to all the board, commission, and committee volunteers for stepping up and being willing to serve, because we can't do all this stuff by ourselves. It's pretty daunting if you're following along and reading along in the packets that we get sent. There's a lot of information, a lot of stuff going on. So. Thank you very much. Secondly, I was going to ask about the fuel pump outage, and Michael seemed to cover it really well, but I am curious if we're doing anything like possibly looking into technology that can help possibly detect a latent failure and or maybe wireless technology as a backup for the landline.
I don't know that there is any kind of detection on it that we could do to see if it was out. We have looked at replacing the system with one that would be, over internet rather than over analog phone lines. If I remember correctly, it's about $15,000 to upgrade that, and so really at this point. As long as our system works reliably, which right now I would say not perfectly reliable, but our fuel sales it'd take to pay for it, it'd take 2 to 3 years of fuel sales just to cover that individual cost there. So it's definitely something we consider and continue to look at and monitor.
Okay. Last thing on my list is dog licensing, and I haven't looked at the ordinance and it's been a long time since I've licensed any pets, so I'm kind of curious if how the enforcement goes with that, if we need to maybe revisit the fines that are associated with dogs that aren't licensed and things like that, and that's. I'm not I'll say it up front, I'm not really a fan of breed-specific anything. I think it's best to just make sure that we've got licensing to cover our costs in terms of boarding and all that stuff, and to make sure that fines and the things that we use for to help maybe encourage good stewardship of your pets. I think if we've got those, bolstered, I think that's probably should be the extent of it. But I'll let the chief weigh in there.
Anytime we take custody of a dog and take it to the kennels, there's a fine associated for not having a license if it's not a licensed pet. That's how we deal with it.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Council Vice President Milton.
I have nothing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll go really quick.
All right, Randy.
Councilman, President Council Moore, I agree with everything he said about the dogs. I'm not in favor of breed-specific rules and regulations. I did look at the penalties and license cost and so forth, and, you know, whether we increase those or maintain them, I don't think that that's going to be, I don't think that's going to be a determining factor, but I think we just need to stay the course. When I understood that the gate was open on one of the two examples, whether it was a 10-foot fence or a 10-inch fence, it wouldn't have mattered. The gate was open. So I would hold pat on what we have in place now and push forward. So I would agree with President Moore over there.
Is there a restriction? I mean, I know that I got a particular email on this, and they were complaining that there was one quote-unquote vicious dog that was in a yard not too far from them, and the fence was only 5 feet tall, and they were concerned that that dog would jump the fence and attack their kid. Is because it was just jumping up and down and barking. There's no height restriction on a privacy fence in the city other than those that are issued by HOAs, right?
Yes, sir, we do have height restrictions on the fence. 6 foot is the privacy fence height restriction item, which is usually the one that you find in the backyards and the side yards.
Sure.
We do allow for a 4-foot picket style fence, but you normally don't see that where you have animals too often. It's usually somebody has a higher fence.
Sure.
But that is the height limit. We do allow, one exception to that is in an industrial area, we allow a higher security fence.
Right.
But it's a different animal as far as the type of fencing is concerned.
And to that point, Mr. Mayor, I got the same correspondence. If my daughter was, need some water? If my daughter, I felt, was threatened, I would probably build my own fence on my own property line in order to secure that safety. So that's another option that should be considered. I understand there's a cost to it.
Yes, there is.
But with respects to what Mr. Powell spoke of, I found that to be true. So
Okay.
those are the options.
Great, great. Well,
Of course.
thank you.
The other option is you can always just defend yourself.
No. You can.
I mean, train your kids to do it.
Well, I mean, if they're toddlers, I think that was a
Yeah,
concern.
you know, I understand though. I don't let my toddlers walk alone.
All right. Anything else, Randy?
No, thank you.
Okay. I believe that's it. 7:42. Not bad. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Don't we have the
No, we do not.
Pretty
That's
sure.
next meeting.
Next meeting.
So
meeting.
moved.
We can't do
Second.
it. It's too early. We gotta do something.
There's a motion on the floor, sir.
Yeah, there's a motion on the floor.
And a second.
And where's the second? You motioned and second.
No,
No, sir. I motioned.
You
did it at
motioned.
the same time that I said.
Ah, I see. Okay. Motion Gregorczyk, second Moore, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Me.
Any abstentions? We are adjourned.
Thank you.